Good evening, folks. My name is Paul Flores Taylor, and I have the distinct honor of being your co-moderator this evening. I host a podcast called Power of X-Men.
Yes.
And my name is Daryl Guido. I am the president of Shelf Club Book Club, and I'm really thankful for everyone that came out.
Are we excited to hear Lenore speak tonight? Can you make some noise? I'm sorry, I thought we were mutants in this crowd. I said, can we make some noise? She is a mutant icon, a trailblazer in Canadian politics, but she is most known for her unforgettable voice as Rogue from X-Men, the animated series, and X-Men 97. She has inspired an entire generation with her authenticity, her power, and her voice. And tonight she's going to be reading from her memoir, A Rogue's Tale, which has debuted to critical acclaim. Please
Welcome the voice of Rogue herself, Lenore Zann.
Hi, Paul's dad. Well, hello everybody. How are we all doing today? Great. Another beautiful day in the neighborhood. Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here, and I want to say thank you so much. Is it Austie? Who is your name? Austie?
Steve.
Thank you, Steve, so much.
Sorry, I've been called worse.
That's okay. And thank you for bringing me here and opening your beautiful bookshop
Thank
up
you so
for
much
this.
for being here.
I love it. As soon as I walked in, when I saw censorship is unacceptable, I was like, I'm in the right place.
You are.
So listen, first of all, I just want you to know, I'm from Australia originally. How many people here have actually read the book yet? Not too many, but a couple. Yeah, so when you get the book, you'll see my origin story starts as a kid in Sydney, Australia. And that was where I first was introduced to ballet. My mother was an incredible dancer in her younger day, and she enrolled me in ballet at an early age and took me to the ballet, and I got to see people on stage in incredible costumes and with music, and when the lights went down in a theater, the hush of the audience, the excitement of the audience before a show, and then the hush and the expectancy, it blew me away. And when the people came out all dressed up and people were they were just so enamored and really laser sharp watching everything on stage, that was the first bug that bit me, that made me realize I wanted to be a performer. The second thing I did was I had a wonderful grandmother, Mummy Marshall I called her. I thought I had two mummies and two daddies, because Mummy Marshall and Daddy Pop. My mother called her father Pop, so I call him Daddy Pop. They used to look after me out in the bush in a place called Karua, which was about 120 miles north of Sydney. And my mom and dad, being young teachers, were oftentimes really busy getting their careers going, and they were building a house too. And their house that they were building in the suburbs of Sydney, Australia, it was built on stilts, because at that time there was no air conditioning or anything, and as it is here, it gets very hot. So houses, they came up with this idea of building them on stilts so that they get the breezes. Now, my parents bought that house for $5,000. They had it made, they had it built, and they built it for $5,000. And I went back to Australia recently, and I visited the old neighborhood, and I ran into somebody who was the next door neighbor living there, and they said, yeah, that house had just sold for $7.5 million. And I almost didn't have the heart to tell my mother, because she'd be like, why didn't we hold on to that? But it's considered, those kinds of houses now are considered heritage, because that was like 50 years ago, and they don't make them like that anymore. Now they have air conditioning. So, so I started off in Australia, And my grandmother used to tell me lots of stories about the bush and about the animals, all the little Australian animals, and also about witches and dragons and fairies. And so she really set my imagination aflutter. And so I started playing this game with my grandmother where she had this big old grandfather clock. Anybody who remembers big old grandfather clocks, you know, right? And they were quite an imposing feature in a room. And I had this game that I made up where every time she had to sit on the couch in front of the clock, and every time I went around behind the clock and then came out, I was a different person, and she had to guess who I was, whether it was a family member or a movie star or whatever. And I think that was my early, like little 6 and 7-year-old brain, like being an actor, becoming a character. And then I went into starting to write short stories and poems. My dad introduced me to that. And we moved to Canada when I was 8. And we moved over to Nova Scotia on the east coast of Canada, which if you've ever seen Anne of Green Gables, you know, the movies or the TV shows or read the books by Lucy Maud Montgomery, Anne of Green Gables took place in Nova Scotia and Prince Edward Island. And my mom and dad bought a beautiful old heritage house that looked exactly like that. And I actually have just recently purchased it. And now I own that beautiful old family home. It's almost 200 years old. Yeah, it's really cool. So if you ever want to come to Nova Scotia, you can come visit me, Truro, Nova Scotia. And it used to be the old stagecoach stop. And it was the second oldest house in Truro, the second house ever built. So I went into high school. I'd never had any lessons, acting or singing or anything. But I used to wander in the woods and sing at the top of my lungs and make up stories and imagine all kinds of things. And so when I was in grade 10, they were having musical auditions. And the musical they were going to do that year, I was 15, was Guys and Dolls. And they were looking for Adelaide, the harlot with the heart of gold, who gets to sing, "A person can develop a cold." And I decided I was going to audition. Well, my mom and dad, being teachers and also being a little bit afraid of me trying anything that they thought I might fail at, said, "Oh, are you sure you want to audition? Because the bigger girls will get the lead roles, and you know, you haven't got any background in singing or acting, and they've all taken classes and things. So maybe you should just wait. You know, we don't want you to be disappointed." And I remember saying, "Well, I've got just as much chance as anybody else. Why don't I just give it a shot? I'll never find out if I don't try." And I remember that at the age of 15. And sure enough, I landed Adelaide, one of the 2 female leads. And when I came out on stage opening night, my mother said she couldn't even recognize me. She felt like it was a different person. And she thought, did that person really come from her? And people told my mom and dad then, they said, you know, that girl, she belongs on the stage. She's a natural. And so that's when I started doing community theater. And then I auditioned for the professional theater company in the local city, the capital city of Halifax. If you've ever heard of Halifax, Nova Scotia, that theater is called Neptune Theater. And I got hired on the spot for that, to play small roles. I was 17 when I got my Actors Equity card, so I became a professional at 17. And at 19, I was chosen to play Marilyn Monroe in a rock opera on the life of Marilyn Monroe. And that was what kickstarted my career, and I became a star in Canada. The newspapers all said, "A star is born," after the opening night of that show. And then movies and television offers followed. And I still continued to do theater when the time was right, including off-Broadway in New York and in Chicago. And so whenever there is a role that's really right for me, that I feel very strong about, I'll do live theater still, and I still do movies and television. I have a show right now on Peacock. If you get Peacock or Sci-Fi, it's called Revival, and it's a live action series. Yeah, it's really good. It's horror genre, supernatural, and I've got a recurring role. So I think you might enjoy that while you're waiting for season 2 of X-Men 97. So that gives you a little bit of an idea of some of what I go over in the book. But I'm going to read to you from a passage. Because we were in Australia, my last name is Zann. Now, I don't know about you, but having a last name that starts with a Z was really hard as a kid because all the other kids had like McDonald, Smith, McIntosh, all these, these British kind of names. And I was like, where did we come from? Like with a name like Zann, where'd that come from? And the family they didn't really know. All they knew was my dad's grandfather said we came from an island in the Adriatic and that we were kings of the island. Now, of course, we probably made that part up. And so I was always very curious. And at one point in my, when I was 26, I went over to Croatia, which was part of Yugoslavia at the time. And I knew the name of the little town by then, Stari Grad, which is where we had come from. And I wanted to find out what my roots were, who we were, and what made us leave there and come over to Australia. And so some really amazing things happened and some really shitty things happened. It was a really a roller coaster of an experience. And after one particularly terrible thing that happened to me, I found myself wandering bleary-eyed in a little town called Split, which is where you go to if you're going to take the ferries over to the islands. And I was ready to take a ferry and go over to the island we came from. But I found myself wandering around and going, who am I? Why am I here? What's my purpose? Very much like Rogue. Very much like Rogue. I hadn't played her yet at that age. At 26, I played her later on when I turned 30, 31. And so I found myself wandering around and I asked the universe, please show me a sign. Who am I? Where am I supposed to go next? And this is what happened. So when my body finally came to a halt by itself, I looked up to see that I was standing in front of a large, stately, yellow building. I had no idea what type of building it was, although it felt somehow like a church. I found myself walking up the stairs to the huge brass-bound oak doors and using the large metal door knocker to knock. To my surprise, the huge door suddenly swung open, revealing a wizened little old man. He looked as surprised to see me as I did him, and as he looked at me quizzically, he asked in Croatian what it was I wanted. I replied in my halting new old language that I was wondering if the building was a church or a museum. He shook his head, saying, "No, ne, ovo que gazalista." No, this is a theater. My heart skipped a beat, and my eyes must have shown my delight as I replied excitedly, "Okay, I am from Canada, and I am an actress in the theater. Ja sam glumica en kazalist." "Ah, predivno," came the response from the little man. Come, wonderful, come in. I will give you a tour. You are welcome here. This is your home." And with that, he ushered me inside, taking my arm and guided me through the dark corridors and back ways, up a staircase and through a tunnel into what felt like a wide open space. But since it was pitch black, I couldn't see a thing and simply went on my trust and gut feeling that this little man meant no harm and was on my side, and that we were members somehow of the same tribe. At this point, he told me to stand still and not to move, that he'd be back in a moment. I stood stock still until suddenly there was light. The whole place lit up, and I saw that I was standing center stage in the most beautiful old theater one could imagine, with crystal candelabras and hand-painted cherubs, Grecian nymphs and satyrs frolicking along the walls and the ceiling in a rural country setting, and the red velvet seats with damask curtains throughout, tinted with gold, were a sublime touch. Oh, how the audiences must enjoy coming here, I thought. And suddenly, as tears sprang unbidden to my eyes and fell down my cheeks for the second time that day, I realized something profound. It didn't matter what country I was in or what language was being spoken. Once on stage, I knew exactly who I was and where I belonged. Now I saw clearly that the theater felt like a church to me. As I stood center stage, bathed in light, looking out over the vast empty theater, my mind began flashing through all of the roles I'd performed, and suddenly it seemed as if the seats were full. I pictured audiences throughout the ages as I realized that the theater is indeed a sacred space, an altar where visions are created and shared, where priestesses like the Oracle of Delphi once recited incantations and prayers to the gods, and before that, where shamans led community members in dance and song, sharing stories about everything from a successful hunt to births and deaths to the creation of the universe and everything in it. I saw that we actors weave our spells to make an audience forget their cares and woes for a time, lifting their minds and spirits with the magical rhythm and repetition of words. Words that, with the right tone and intention, become spells. Using the entwined energies of actor and audience, growing and pulsating, ecstatic like lovers in a warm summer rain, we drive our audience on through despair and hopelessness and grief to relief, acceptance, and joy, lifting them to a climax and then catharsis, before leading them back firmly, inexorably, to inhabit their own bodies once more, until, surprised, they find themselves back in the theater and realize they've been on a journey and that they are not alone. We have so much more in common with others than we think. We all feel similar emotions, and the theater is the place where we are shown the mirror to remind us of our shared humanity. Audiences can feel the energy connecting them not only to the performers on stage, but to their fellow audience members. It's the same feeling as when a crowd oohs and ahs together watching fireworks or a sports game or some daring, death-defying feat. Everything that happens in our lives and in the countless generations of our ancestors' lives has led to this place and time, this very moment. I smiled at the realization that my search for family and belonging was being fulfilled right here and now. Sometimes the universe provides us with what we truly need in the most ingenious and unexpected ways. I was finally home, and that's the end of that. Over the past 30 years, X-Men, the animated series, has become one of the top 2 animated series of all time, and has laid the foundation for Marvel's multi-billion-dollar mutant franchise globally. It's hard to believe now, but in the beginning, when Larry Houston, our original director of X-Men, the animated series, first shopped around his idea for the show, none of the studios in Hollywood wanted to make it. Larry says now, they just didn't think a show about superheroes could be successful. Boy, were they wrong. And it took a woman to make it happen. Margaret Lesh, who had just become president of Fox Kids Network, and the rest is history. I believe the series endures because of the universal themes and storylines, and the fact that we never talked down to kids. We wanted to bring them up to our level. Instead, our show is thought-provoking, reflecting social justice issues including civil rights, bigotry, tolerance, and equality, issues which, sadly, are still relevant today. I'm often asked why Rogue is such a unique and popular character. The answer is complicated, just like the character. But from the very beginning, I have related to Rogue as if she was written for me. I've heard from many fans around the world who say they love Rogue because although she is such a kick-ass superhero, I mean, after all, she is the strongest woman in the universe, sugar. They tell me that they also deeply relate to her vulnerability. And I do, too. Rogue is universal in that way. Like many legendary mythological heroes of old, Rogue is a hero with an Achilles heel, a unique vulnerability that could prove deadly. However, in Rogue's case, her greatest strength is also her Achilles heel. That's because Rogue, who exudes confidence, ease, sexuality, and a great sense of humor, is at the same time afraid to get close to anyone because her unique ability to absorb their superpowers, thus becoming even stronger than ever, can also drain them of their life force as well. So Rogue can never touch anyone physically, skin to skin, which means she can never be intimate with someone. She can never allow herself to fall in love because, from past experience, if she was to let her emotions get the best of her, she could cause them serious injury, even death. Rogue can never let her guard down, but must always remain vigilant, never able to give all of herself to anybody, which makes her a bit of a loner and also very lonely. In fact, I think it's this quality of Rogue's to which many people can relate. The pain of not being good enough, of not being accepted as we are by our families, peers, or society, while desiring simply to belong, is universal and so human. That's why people join clubs, churches, and sports teams, and why lonely youth can fall prey to becoming gang members or joining cults. In all of these cases, the human need to belong to a tribe or community is very strong. Rogue also feels a deep sense of guilt and shame for past actions, for the harm she's done others, like Ms. Marvel before joining the X-Men. And it's something else that Rogue and I have in common. As somebody who's a sober alcoholic, now 29 years sober, I understand. Thank you. So, guilt and shame, left untreated, can become toxic, turning into self-loathing, which can in turn be extremely destructive if we are unable or unwilling to face our own demons. Some people will act it out and project their toxic shame and fear on others, while some turn it inwards, choosing the path of self-destruction, which can manifest as unhealthy, compulsive behavior or addiction, including extreme risk-taking. Until we do the hard work of peeling back the multiple skins of our own onion to learn what makes us angry, afraid, and ultimately deeply sad, we cannot reach a place where we can even attempt to forgive those who have hurt us. But once we reach that place of forgiveness, we must be willing to forgive ourselves. And that, my friends, is sometimes ultimately the hardest thing to do. Yet this is the path we must take if we are to finally learn to love and accept ourselves as we are. Both Rogue and I ultimately managed to face our own demons to find healing. Although, let's be clear, the pilot light is always on. It's an ongoing process. You know, when X-Men fans from around the world tell me that they hear my voice in their heads as Rogue when they read the comics, and that my portrayal of this character and our show changed their lives, helping them through tough times as kids by giving them hope, I am overwhelmed. It brings tears to my eyes that something I'm part of could have such a profound effect on so many. If only I'd known back in the 90s what a tremendous impact we were having on kids around the world, I wonder if I would have made different choices. I wonder if our colleague Norm Spencer, the original voice of Cyclops, would be alive today had he known of the outpouring of love for our series. However, life is what happens while we're busy making other plans. And the trick to finding and holding on to joy and serenity is to accept what is, not what might have or could have been. And that's the end of that. Now let's give you another interesting little tidbit towards the end of the book. A lot of people don't realize this, but I was an actor for most of my adult life, from when I was 17. But at one point I got tired of acting and saying other people's lines, and I really cared a lot about so many issues that were affecting the world today. And I was asked to go into politics, and my mother, again, said, "Oh, I don't know if you should do that. You'll probably be disappointed. You'll never win. You're crazy to think you might win." My dad said, "What have you got to lose?" And so I said, "Yeah, what have I got to lose? I mean, I'll either win or I won't win. It's like a big audition. It's like you'll get the part or you won't." And, well, here's what I wrote. So, I was in New York doing an audition for the day that the NDP, that's the New Democratic Party of Nova Scotia, my home province, the day that they announced that I would be running for them in the upcoming provincial election. And provincial is like your state elections. So I was running to be congresswoman in Canada. But no sooner had it been announced that I was running than the party also called me to say that one of the opposition parties had sent a picture of me from some show that I'd done to the CBC television's evening news. The problem was, they said, it was a topless photo. "Which one?" was my response. "You mean there's more than one?" they said. "Well, yes, of course," I said. "I'm an actor. I've done a number of nude scenes in the course of my career. I told you that when you signed me up." So they very likely had a field day trying to decide which one to use. Well, it turned out that they used a screenshot from a shower scene that I had appeared in for a TV show, an American show called The L Word. Anybody here know that? Right. And why would they use that, I wondered? Could it be because that particular series was about lesbians, hence the title? So were they counting on stirring up some homophobia in the constituency I was running for, which happened to be called Truro Bible Hill? In any case, the attempt to cut me down before I'd even had a chance to get my campaign going backfired beautifully. The day after the story broke on CBC, more news outlets descended upon Truro, my hometown, and Bible Hill, with cameramen chasing down every little old lady they could find and asking them, "What do you think about this woman running for office in your community?" And I have never been so proud of my hometown because each and every person asked said the same thing. "What are you talking about? This is the 21st century. She's an actress. That's her job. Get over it." God bless every one of them. That was my introduction to politics in 2009, a baptism by fire. But when, against all the odds, I won the election with a huge majority of votes, the media dubbed it a Zann slide. The win was extra sweet. I ended up winning 4 consecutive terms in office as an elected representative for 2 different levels of government. First, thank you so much. Thank you. So first, as a provincial or state member of the Legislative Assembly of Nova Scotia from 2009 to 2019, and then federally, I ran as a Member of Parliament, MP, for Cumberland Colchester, and that was my 4th term in office, working with Prime Minister Trudeau. Anyone who thinks being a politician is easy has absolutely no idea of the work it entails. And you would imagine that in this day and age, being a female politician should be accepted without question, wouldn't you? Well, exactly. I can assure you from personal experience that when a woman attains any kind of political power, the misogynists and bigots come out of the woodwork, attacking and criticizing everything from our hair to our weight to whether we have a right to make our own opinions known. I kid you not. Female politicians also receive more hate mail and threats, including death threats, than our male counterparts. It's truly shocking. There's so much more to tell about the time when rogue goes to Parliament, but that, my friends, is a tale to be told another day. Suffice to say that in spite of the many challenges that came my way, I am truly grateful to the good people of Nova Scotia who believed in and trusted me to represent their best interests for 12 years, 4 consecutive terms. They had good reason to do so, since both of my parents gave me the gift of a strong moral compass, and my motto as a politician is simple. For as Joseph Howe, a famed Nova Scotian parliamentarian and father of responsible government, once said, and I quote, "What is right, what is just, what is for the public good." And that is my motto that I stuck with for my 12 years in politics. These days, however, it seems like the whole world has gone crazy. Wars are raging all around the world, leaving thousands dead and millions suffering and displaced. Famine and pestilence taking even more innocent lives, and the worst global pandemic in hundreds of years killed millions. Book banning has once again become a common occurrence. In fact, The Uncanny X-Men, The Trial of Magneto, a comic book by Chris Claremont, was recently removed from public libraries in Edinburgh, Scotland, of all places. A beautiful cultural city that hosts the Edinburgh Fringe Theatre Festival. Unbelievable. Laws are also being enacted daily in a twisted attempt to prevent the teaching or even discussion of sex education and the history of racism in classrooms, libraries, and school counselors' offices, with a rolling back of human rights, including LGBTQ2SI+, and women's reproductive rights. Bigoted attacks on LGBTQ communities and people of Jewish and Muslim faiths have been climbing around the world. George Orwell was clearly prescient when he wrote his famous books 1984 and Animal Farm, each of which could describe some of the ridiculous political maneuverings evident today. And if you haven't read those books, I highly recommend. They're on the banned list. 1984 and Animal Farm. Get them. If you are anxious about the future, my advice is get involved. Join grassroots environmental organizations, as well as political campaigns in your community. Volunteer to canvass door to door, host neighborhood events, and donate your time and or money to help support the progressive candidates in other regions where the fight to get them elected will be tighter. If not running as a candidate yourself, but why not? Get involved in school board elections and other campaigns for seats in all levels of government by volunteering for your candidate who has the same compassionate, inclusive values as your own. Because believe me, the other side are doing that. It's why these horrendous backward laws are being enacted. And for God's sake, get out and vote. Don't believe the people who say your vote doesn't count. It does. Take it from me. Progressive politicians need every vote we can get. And we need them in order to defeat those who would take our civil rights away. Don't let them. I've got a last little piece here. Yes. At the end of the day, my message is simple. The phoenix always rises reborn from its own ashes. So don't give up, even when the task ahead seems impossible, or life has just thrown you a curveball that has brought you to your knees. When you feel like you've hit the wall, or you're free falling, or you've reached an impasse, or you just can't read one more news story or scroll through another TikTok video because it's making you so sad and so angry. When you hit that place and you don't know where to go, try to cultivate a feeling of faith versus fear and wait. There is always something beyond that bend or around this corner or over the next hill that you can't yet see. As I write this, I was honored by the fact that the federal bill I crafted so painstakingly and introduced in 2020 as a member of parliament, a national strategy respecting environmental racism and environmental justice, has just finally passed in the Senate, and it is now the law of Canada. It took me 10 years to make it happen, but we got it done. This book, my first, is meant to inspire you to keep going when the going gets tough. If people like it, I have many more tales to tell and learned lessons to share. At the end of X-Men, the animated series, Professor Xavier sums up my character. Rogue, unable to touch, yet look around you. You will find that you've touched us all. One can only hope. Excelsior. Hi, sweetie.
How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Thank you for being such a great audience. I really appreciate it.
Was she a great reader? Great author.
The audiobook's coming out too.
What? No, I'm not going to tell them. You tell them.
There will be an audiobook coming out
And you recorded it.
too. Yes. I just finished recording it in Toronto. So I don't know when it'll be out. Probably in the fall or by Christmas anyway.
So, Lenore,
Thank you.
you were talking about the X-Men, and I'm one of the kids that had the fortunate opportunity to watch the show as it was happening live.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, as a kid, I kept thinking to myself, I just need to get to Xavier's school, right? Because the idea for a kid to think that there's a school out there waiting for them to celebrate who they are, and they're not only going to find a family, but they're going to be part of a larger team, was so profound. And I feel like I've arrived. However, now you're coming here to Miami.
Yes.
And I want to know, how do you like Miami?
I love it. You know, it's my first time here in Miami. I love it. Yes.
Miami, I think we can do better than that. Come on, cafecitos. We're gonna give her some pupina later.
A dear friend of mine who was in the same high school that I went to, who was in the band with me. I played trumpet in the band before I found out that I could sing and act and all that stuff. But he played trombone, and his name was Phil Gray. And he came here after school, after he finished, and he got a job right away with an amazing band performing here. And they traveled all around the world. So he has always told me how vibrant Miami is. And he said, Lenore, you're going to eat it up and they're going to eat you up. So you got to get there. So here I am, thanks to Paul. And
So I want to touch upon what you talked about with book fans. So with my book club, Shelf Club Book Club, we really want to elevate the voices that are trying to be silenced. And you mentioned in your book club in your book that you used to read to your dad towards the end of his life. So I know that reading is important to you. What are your thoughts about the current climate for book censorship and for authors that are afraid to publish books that may be censored? What would you say to them?
first of all, I think if an author wrote a book and it was censored, I think that'll probably help it sell more copies, to be honest. We've seen this before. This has happened before in Germany and many other countries where the Nazis just burned books because they didn't want anybody to have any knowledge. And they wanted to basically brainwash people to think the same way that they thought, and to train everybody's minds to think the same. America thrives on individuality and the fact that there's so many different independent people with incredible ideas and thoughts. We need to share them. The country becomes stronger by sharing our visions, and you're so lucky that you have so many beautiful cultures here, including the Cuban culture here in Florida.
Somos cubanos aquí.
And that's what makes you so interesting. I read recently that salsa has become the #1 condiment on the American tables. It's beat out ketchup now. So what does that tell you, right?
Wait, I'm sorry, Lenore.
Yes.
Mild, medium, or hot?
I usually like medium, to be honest.
Okay, I think we can accept that here in Miami.
Yeah, I like medium. But I just think that banning books is just a stupid idea, and it makes people more stupid.
So I think between Daryl and I, we have so many questions, but we want to give it an opportunity for the folks in the audience to ask some questions. Do we have any questions for Lenore? Just raise your hand. Yes, our friend right here.
You don't mind? I can show them.
Okay.
Oh.
All right.
Oh.
What is it?
Hold on.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah, X-Men 97 Season 1 premiere. Can we get a round of applause for our incredible fan here? Thank you so much.
Did you have a question about it, or you just wanted to share that?
Just to share it.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate that.
Thank you so much. I think we had a question in the back.
Yes.
If Marvel were to approach you and be like, hey, write a Rogue miniseries, would you accept, and what would you want the plot to be?
Well, let's put it this way, Sugar. I would love to see a spin-off series, animated spin-off series of Mr. and Mrs. X, Rogue and Remy. Right? I think that there are so many Romy fans now. Romy, right? Like Bennifer. Like Rogue and Remy. They just love us together. And so I think that would be really cool to have a spin-off series of Rogue and Remy and their adventures.
I don't know. I see someone with a Magneto shirt in the front row.
Okay. Magneto was right.
Snail's Gambit, remember it.
Remember it, yes, exactly. Yes?
So, after doing X-Men 97, what was it like watching the Fox X-Men films and seeing that version of Rogue, the Anna one?
Well, it was X-Men the animated series is the one we did first. X-Men 97 is the one that just came out.
Well,
So you mean
the original '90s X-Men? That's what.
right. So after we did ours, there was one that came out called X-Men Evolution. I didn't see that, and I wasn't asked to audition for it either. Unfortunately, I would have done it in a heartbeat, but nobody approached me. And then they did one, Wolverine
And the X-Men.
X-Men. I wasn't asked to audition for that one either, so I haven't seen that one. And the movies, I watched the first movie, but I felt that they really changed Rogue's character and made her like Jubilee. I think they went for an age demographic, like they wanted a really young person, but they made her like Jubilee. So I don't know why they didn't just introduce Jubilee as opposed to Rogue. Because even her relationship with Wolverine, that's the relationship that Jubilee has with Wolverine. And she didn't have her powers, and she didn't have a southern accent, and I was disappointed. It wasn't the actress's fault, it was just the way it was written. I didn't really like it. Yes.
Hi, first of all, it's amazing to meet you. I've been a fan since the 90s, but I was born in 94, so I grew up watching review movies.
Right.
And when the announcement came out for 97, I was like, stop the press. Don't come near me. It's amazing for you to write this book because I've kind of been going through my own thing. I actually want to be in the industry, not just as a voice actor, but as an actor. And I have a whole plan, and I actually just got accepted into film school as well.
What's the name? Mackenzie, congratulations.
Thank you so much. It's been the moment I found out you can make a living out of this, the moment I turned on the TV, I'm like, sign me in.
Right.
What, and again, Magneto was right. If I may, I have two questions actually. So for 97 being back, I can imagine how ecstatic you were the moment this was mentioned. With the trajectory after this first season, what can we expect? Can we expect maybe 4 Horsemen of Death, more Rogue Nito?
Wait, no spoilers. No spoilers, I'm sorry.
I'm not allowed to say. We signed NDAs and we're not allowed to talk about which way the stories go. But all I will say is that I have now completed recording season 2. And I love the scripts and I love the arc. I love where it's going, and I think you guys will too. I think you'll be very excited. And then I've started season 3 as well.
Wow.
Yes. Hold on to your hat.
And that's all she can say, so no more questions on what's to come in X-Men 97.
What was your second question?
My second question is, how can someone like me who is now possibly starting film school and post film school graduation, what trajectory would you recommend best for someone trying to break in there?
Well, if you're going to go to film school, which is great, I would say learn how to make and create content. And then start writing for yourself and your friends and get experience performing on, if you want to be an actor, right? Yeah. But these days, you can create stuff for yourself, and that will be a calling card. We didn't really have that back when I was starting out. Movies, and it cost a lot of money. Now you've got cameras on your phone that can take videos and stuff where you can make really good quality stuff. So I would say, like I always say, take acting classes if you can, and audition for as much stuff as you can, and try it out, see if you like it, and create some content for yourself. I think that would be an excellent way for a young person to break into it. You're welcome.
Question in the back over there.
Hi. So I'm also an actor. I've done a lot of stage work, a little bit of film, not too much film. And we talk a lot about Rogue, but I want to know your story. How did you become Rogue?
How did I become Rogue?
Yes. How did you get the part? What's that story?
Okay, well, I started off in theater. As I said, I did a lot of theater, and then because I did theater and was seen as Marilyn Monroe, then I started getting movies and television offers. So I did a lot of film and TV. Then I went to New York and I did a play. I did a play for 9 months in Toronto, then 9 months in Chicago, and then 9 months in New York off Broadway. And when I came back to Toronto from that, my agent at the time asked me if I wanted to audition for this animated series. Now, I'd only done one other animated series before that, and I considered myself a serious actress. So, movies, TV, theater, not so much cartoons. So I didn't go to the audition. I kind of blew it off. And then she called me again, and she said, Lenore, they're still looking for the right actress for this role. They're looking for somebody with a deep, husky, sexy voice who could do a Southern accent. And she said, and they haven't found the right actress because it's you. So get your ass in gear, get down there to the studio and audition. So I did, and I walked in and I saw a drawing of Rogue. And she was standing there with her hand on her hip and her head flown back, and I went, oh, she's got sass and attitude. I think I can do that. And so I went into the booth, and I put the headphones on, and the producers were in Los Angeles. And I read the little piece that they had for us, which was, my daddy liked to kill himself when he found out I was a mutant. I remember I had me a boyfriend when I was 13. Had me a boyfriend till I kissed him. Poor boy went into a coma for 3 days. And I heard these people screaming. It just came out of me, sugar. And I heard these guys screaming on the other end of the headphones in Los Angeles, going, don't let her leave the building. That's Rogue. That's the one we've been waiting for. And that's how I got the part.
Question in the back.
Lenore, thank you so much for that lovely reading. It was beautiful. How did you find the transition from actor to author?
Well, I had written short stories and poems when I was younger. And when I went into politics, I wrote all my own speeches. And I really enjoyed the process. And I would write and rewrite and edit and re-edit. I was writing right up until I got up to give the speech. And a lot of my colleagues would kind of joke about, oh, there's Lenore, she's still writing, she's still crossing things out. I wouldn't be able to read that. It was all like chicken scratching. But I would go from one to another to another, and then but I would perform and I would do the speech. And so I really enjoyed that. And so a number of people said, Lenore, you got to write a book. You got to write your story because you've lived at least 10 lives in one. But I never had the time. I was too busy living it. Until at the end of the 12 years in politics, suddenly Disney came calling. And they headhunted me. They found me down in Truro, Nova Scotia. And they said, would you please come back and portray Rogue again for a whole new generation of young kids. And I went, you had me at hello, sugar. and that was when I realized, okay, now I'm going to write the book. Because I had a nice ending for it, too. Like, after all of the struggle and trying to find yourself and everything, and then it's like you come back to that. So it kind of gave me the beginning, middle, and end that I needed. And then I started going to Comic-Cons. I was invited to meet all the fans. And every time I got on a plane, I would write. And funnily enough, I don't type. I don't know how to type. I never picked that up. So I wrote the whole thing on my phone, on my iPhone, with my thumb. Yeah, in the notes section. You know, the notes? I wrote it on there. Yeah. But, every time I got on a plane, I would go in the zone. And so when I flew over to Australia to do 2 Comic-Cons there and see my family and everything after so many years, I wrote 4 chapters on the way to Australia, 16-hour flight from LA to Sydney, 4 chapters on the way there and 4 chapters on the way back. And so that's how I did it. So if anybody is interested in writing, I suggest do it on a plane.
I believe I have a question from the gentleman in the front.
So, Lenore.
Yes.
I hear you're going to be attending Tampa Bay Comic-Con in a few days.
That's right, I am.
Any hints for people who are going to be attending or what they can expect from you?
Well, I mean, I just finished a 5-day Comic-Con in San Diego, which was, it was like, oh my gosh, now that is a marathon. They put you through the gauntlet for that one. So I think 3 days in Tampa will be just lovely. I can't wait to meet the fans there. I think I'm going to be the only X-Men there this time. I love beach communities, so I'm just really looking forward to getting there and meeting the fans. Yeah.
Funny thing is, Jubilee was there last year.
Yes, exactly. I think she went by herself last year too. Yeah. This time they get me.
Thank you so much. I think we have a question in the back.
Hello.
Hello.
Of your theater experience that you have had, what would you say? And I know it might have a variation of some sort, but what would you say would be your favorite gig that you did in theater?
In theater?
Yeah.
The Marilyn Monroe. If you get my book and read it, the Marilyn Monroe experience was life changing. But it wasn't necessarily a great experience because although I was the star of this new musical, an original musical, I was only 19. And as I talk about in the book, I got out there to Edmonton in Canada. My parents were over in Nova Scotia. I had a boyfriend at the time. He was there in Nova Scotia. And I got there and the director, who was probably in his 60s, and his wife was pregnant upstairs in the same building, started coming on to me and sexually harassing me. Yeah, it was a nightmare. You have to read the book.
Right.
You have to read the book. But I overcame it, and I created a performance. and my performance that I gave got everybody jumping to their feet at the curtain, at the, standing ovation when I walked out on stage, and the newspapers all said, "A star is born." But it was despite that guy. So that was, I have mixed feelings about it. But doing Unidentified Human Remains and the True Nature of Love was the name of the play that I did in Toronto, then Chicago, and then New York, and then we took it to Mexico City, and it was an amazing experience. In that play, I had a love scene with a guy. A few love scenes with the guy, and I also had a love scene with a woman. And my character was very confused. And when we went to Mexico City, we went to El Gran Ciudad de Mexico, which is a big theater festival. And women came up to me after that and said, "Thank you so much. We've never seen two women kiss on stage before in Mexico City."
Amazing.
So that was pretty amazing. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Daryl, do we have time for one more question before the signing?
I think we have time for one more question. In the back.
Oh, we have 3. Okay, we will do you 3.
Yeah, that's
so let's go 1, 2, 3.
Okay, here's a funny one.
All right.
So if your rogue ever met Ryan Reynolds' Deadpool,
Yeah.
any idea what you'd say to him?
Well, you're kind of cute for a creepy kind of fella. Now, are there any super fans in the audience who recognize where that line came from that I just said? Well, you're kind of cute for a creepy kind of fella.
Is it Ray Earth?
No. It's from the crossover when X-Men meet Spider-Man. And I say Spider-Man, put Peter Parker when he's dressed up as Spider-Man. Yes, you're kind of cute for a creepy kind of fella. And who knows, maybe we'll get to do some more crossovers with them because I hear there's a new Spider-Man going to be coming, a new animated Spider-Man. So, I hear that. But I don't know if we can do a crossover. It would be nice.
Who was our second question? Right there. Stand up.
Okay, so first off, I'm kind of a big media buff, mainly in film.
Yes.
And also mainly horror stuff.
Uh-huh.
So in my cinema travels,
yes,
I have seen that Canada is kind of a rich, fertile ground for cool genre cinema.
Yeah, that's true.
So you said you've done some live action work. Is there any older things?
Oh my God, there's a million of them.
If
you go on IMDb, you'll see a ton of my stuff. You see a ton of credits on IMDb.
Yeah.
But in the 80s, when I was in my 20s, I became kind of a scream queen in Canada.
Nice.
So when people say, how did you practice? How did you get that scream for Rogue? I'm like, hey, honey, I had lots of practice getting murdered in all kinds of nefarious ways. When you're young and in your 20s and they're doing horror films, they always want you in your underwear, But I got murdered so many different ways. I got blown up by a phone. It was wild. But yeah, if you look it up, American Nightmare, Happy Birthday to Me, Visiting Hours. These are all some like classic horror films that we did. And back in those days, I used to call them tax write-offs for dentists. Because there was a thing where you could invest in making movies and you would get a tax write-off. And so a lot of these rich dentists and people were putting their money into these movies. And horror films, I don't know if people know this, but horror films are notoriously, they make their money back pretty fast. Horror films are pretty popular. So if you like horror films, check out Revival on Peacock. I think you'll like it. Was there one more in the back?
One more.
Yes, thank you so much for sharing your memoir with us, for the wonderful reading. Of course, we will all pick up a copy.
Thank
But
you.
I am so curious, what else are you reading?
What am I reading?
Yeah, in this beautiful room,
well,
I can't.
I am just almost finished Circe, the one about, I love it. I love it. She's like she's demigoddess. Her father was Helios, the sun god, to a nymph. He was married to a nymph, and she was the very first witch in the gods and goddesses. She was known for being able to turn people into different animals. Actually, she was able to turn them into what they really were, and they would oftentimes come out as animals. But she was a really interesting god that I had, I'd heard about, but I'd never read. So I love mythology. Anything to do with the myths around the world, I love. You're welcome.
Thank you guys for the questions. I'm gonna be selfish and ask one more question. So with, there's a lot of properties that are being brought back, for a reboot or recontinuation, like Buffy the Vampire Slayer, what you did last summer, Charm, in addition to the X-Men. So was there anything that made you question, should I come back to Rogue? Were you worried about the character?
No. No. For me, it's like pulling on a pair of really fine, well-worn gloves. She just slips right in there. She just comes out, and I'm really happy to see her again. Yeah.
Can we get another round of applause for Lenore Zann? So, folks, we're going to be doing a signing on the other side of the store. You can exit to the right through that curtain right there.